I never thought I'd spend my 72nd birthday discovering that my own daughter had been trying to kill me. But there I was, standing in my kitchen, in Kelowna, British Columbia, holding a bottle of my daily vitamin supplements while my 7-year-old granddaughter Sophie stared at me with tears streaming down her face. "Grandpa George," she whispered, her small voice cracking. "Please don't take those." Mommy switched them. The bottle slipped from my fingers and clattered across the counter. Sophie hadn't spoken a single word in over 2 years. Not since her father died in that logging accident up near Prince George. The doctors called it selective mutism, trauma-induced. My daughter Melissa and her new husband Trevor had taken her to specialists in Vancouver, spent thousands on therapy. Nothing worked. Until now. Until this moment. Until whatever she'd been holding inside finally broke free. "Sophie?" I managed to croak out, my heart hammering against my ribs. "You? You can talk?" She nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "I've always been able to talk, Grandpa. I couldn't. Not around them. But they just left for the airport. They won't be back for 2 weeks. They're going to Hawaii. And I heard Mommy tell Trevor that by the time they get back, you'll be gone." The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the counter to steady myself. Gone? What did that mean? I looked down at the vitamin bottle on the floor, then back at Sophie's terrified face. "What do you mean, sweetie? What did Mommy switch?" Sophie walked over to her little backpack hanging by the door. With shaking hands, she pulled out a Ziploc bag containing an identical bottle to the one on my floor. "These are your real vitamins, Grandpa. The ones the doctor gave you after your heart thing last year. I took them from your bathroom 3 days ago, before Mommy could throw them away. The ones you've been taking, those aren't vitamins." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My heart thing. That's what we called the mild heart attack I'd had 14 months ago. "Nothing major," the doctor said. "Take these supplements, watch your diet, reduce stress." I'd been doing exactly that. Taking those pills every single morning with my coffee. Except for the past few months, I'd been feeling worse, not better. Dizzy spells, nausea, weakness that seemed to seep into my bones. My doctor, old Dr. Patterson, had run some tests but couldn't find anything conclusive. Said it might just be age catching up with me. I was 72, after all. But now, looking at Sophie's terrified face, a horrible truth began to crystallize in my mind. "How long have you known about this?" I asked quietly, kneeling down to her level. "Since Mommy married Trevor," she whispered. 8 months ago, I saw her in the garage one night, putting something into a new bottle. She was wearing gloves, Grandpa, like the kind they use on TV when they don't want fingerprints. And she was crying. She kept saying, I'm sorry, but we need this." Then Trevor came in and told her to hurry up, that you might wake up. 8 months. Jesus Christ, 8 months of my own daughter poisoning me. "Why didn't you tell someone, sweetheart?" Sophie's face crumpled. "Trevor said if I ever talked again, if I ever told anyone anything I saw or heard, he'd make sure you had an accident, a bad one. He said he knew people who could make it look natural. And he said," she paused, her little shoulders shaking. "He said nobody would believe a crazy mute kid anyway. That's what he calls me. Crazy mute kid. Rage. Pure, white-hot rage flooded through my veins. I pulled Sophie into my arms, holding her tight while she sobbed against my chest. "You're not crazy, Sophie. You're the bravest person I know. And you just saved my life." But even as I said it, my mind was racing. Why? Why would Melissa do this? We'd had our differences over the years, sure. She'd been angry when I told her I didn't like Trevor, that there was something off about the guy. They'd gotten married anyway, just 6 months after her first husband died. Too fast, I'd thought. Too convenient. And then there was the house. My house. This beautiful 3-bedroom rancher sitting on 5 acres of prime Okanagan Valley land, worth close to $1.8 million in today's market. Melissa was my only child, my only heir. When I died, everything would go to her. "Sophie," I said gently, pulling back to look at her face. "I need you to tell me everything. Can you do that?" She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Can we go to your workshop? I feel safer there." The workshop, my sanctuary out back, where I'd spent countless hours teaching Sophie how to build birdhouses and small furniture pieces. Before she stopped talking, before Trevor entered our lives, we walked out there together, Sophie's small hand gripping mine tightly. Once inside, with the door closed and locked, she seemed to breathe easier. "They talk about it all the time," she began, sitting on my workbench stool. "When they think I'm asleep, or when I'm in my room. They forget that I can hear through the vents. Trevor says once you're gone, they'll sell this place and move to Costa Rica. He says they can live like kings there on the money. Mommy cries sometimes. But Trevor always tells her it's too late to back out now. That if they stop, you might recover and figure it out." "What exactly is in those pills?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "I don't know the name, but I heard Trevor on the phone with someone, ordering more. He said it was the same stuff they use for pest control, but in small doses it just makes people sick. Real sick. Over time." She paused. "Grandpa, I looked up your symptoms on the computer at school. When we had library time, everything matched. The dizziness, the throwing up, the tiredness. It's called rat poison, the slow kind. Anticoagulant poisoning. Jesus. That would explain why Dr. Patterson's tests hadn't shown anything definitive. The symptoms mimic so many other conditions. And in an elderly man with a history of heart problems, who would suspect murder? Is there anything else, Sophie? Anything at all that might help?" She bit her lip, then nodded slowly. "Trevor keeps a phone, a special one, in his truck, in the glove compartment. I saw him use it once when we were getting groceries. He was texting someone about the old man, and the timeline, and there's something else." She hopped off the stool and grabbed a piece of paper from her pocket. It was worn, like she'd been carrying it for a while. "I found this in the garbage, in Mommy's office." She'd torn it up, but I put it back together. I unfolded the paper. It was a printout of an email from Melissa's account to someone named Richard Chen. The date was from 6 months ago. Dad's latest blood work came back. "Dr. Patterson is starting to get suspicious. We need to be more careful. Maybe skip a few doses, let him seem better, then start again. Trevor thinks we should increase the dosage to speed things up, but I think that's too risky. What do you think? You said this would be undetectable." My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the paper. Richard Chen. I knew that name. He'd been a pharmacist in Vancouver, struck off the register 3 years ago for selling prescription medications illegally. Melissa had gone to university with him. They dated briefly. "Sophie, you've been carrying this around?" "I hid it in my dollhouse. The one you made me. I figured they'd never look there. I have other stuff too. In my room at home. Under the loose floorboard beneath my bed. Pictures I took with my tablet. Recordings I made when they didn't know. This wasn't just a scared 7-year-old. This was a child who'd been gathering evidence, building a case, waiting for the right moment." "Why now?" I asked. "Why tell me today?" "Because they're gone for 2 weeks. And yesterday, I heard Trevor tell Mommy that when they get back, they're going to finish this. He said they'd already waited too long, that you've been sick enough for long enough that when you die, nobody will ask questions." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He said they'd put extra in your coffee the morning they get home. Enough to make your heart stop." I pulled out my phone, my fingers hovering over 911. But Sophie grabbed my wrist. "Not yet, Grandpa. Please. If we call now, they'll just say I'm making it up. That I'm crazy. We need proof. Real proof. The kind they can't deny." She was right. A 7-year-old's testimony, even with selective mutism, might not be enough, especially against my own daughter. I needed something concrete. "Okay," I said, thinking fast. "Here's what we're going to do." Over the next hour, Sophie showed me everything she'd collected. Photos on her tablet of Trevor handling the vitamin bottles with gloves. Screenshots of text messages she'd captured when Melissa left her phone unlocked. Voice recordings from her room, including one particularly damning conversation where Trevor told Melissa exactly how much medicine to give me and when. But we needed more. We needed current evidence. Proof that could be verified by authorities. "The vitamins," I said. "The fake ones. I'll take them to a lab, get them tested. And the phone in Trevor's truck," Sophie added. "The secret one. I bet there's stuff on there." I looked at my granddaughter. This brave, brilliant child who'd endured so much. "You know what we're doing is dangerous, right? If they find out before we can get this to the police." "I know, Grandpa. But I can't let them kill you. You're all I have left. My real daddy is gone. And Mommy," her voice broke, Mommy isn't mommy anymore. Not since Trevor. We spent that evening planning. I called my lawyer, Patricia Donaldson, someone I'd known for 30 years. Without going into details, I told her I needed to update my will immediately. Could she come to the house tomorrow? She could. Then I called my oldest friend, Bill Morrison, a retired RCMP sergeant. Bill, I said carefully, if I needed to document something for legal purposes, something sensitive, what would you recommend? There was a pause. George, are you in trouble? I might be, but I can't talk about it yet. I just need to know the right way to handle evidence. He understood. Told me to write everything down, date it, sign it, get it notarized if possible. Take photos of everything with timestamps. Don't touch the physical evidence more than necessary. And for God's sake, don't confront anyone until I had professionals involved. That night, after Sophie fell asleep in the guest room, I sat at my kitchen table and looked at the vitamin bottle. My daughter, my little girl. The baby I'd rocked to sleep, the toddler I'd taught to ride a bike, the teenager I'd stayed up worrying about. She was trying to kill me. For money, for a house, for a life in Costa Rica with a man who called her daughter a crazy mute kid. I thought about my wife, Catherine, who'd died 12 years ago from cancer. What would she think? How would she feel knowing what Melissa had become? But I couldn't afford to fall apart. Not yet. Sophie was counting on me. The next morning, Patricia arrived at 9 sharp. I had her witness the new will I'd drafted. Everything to Sophie in trust, managed by Patricia until Sophie turned 25. Not a penny to Melissa. I also had her notarize my written statement about everything Sophie had told me. George, Patricia said quietly as she packed up her briefcase. I've known you a long time. This isn't just estate planning, is it? No, I admitted. It's not. Do you need help? Legal help? Soon, but not yet. I need to get my ducks in a row first. She nodded, understanding the lawyer-client privilege that protected our conversation. Call me. Anytime, day or night. After she left, Sophie and I drove to Trevor's workplace, a construction supply company in West Kelowna. His truck was parked in the lot. While Sophie kept watch, I used the spare key she'd stolen months ago to open the glove compartment. The burner phone was there, just like she'd said. I didn't touch it. Just photographed it in place. Photographed the recent texts and calls. Most were to a number saved as RC, Richard Chen, I assumed. The messages were careful, coded, but clear enough. Package delivered, subject showing symptoms, timeline on track. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, and we left. The lab results took 3 days. I'd paid extra for a rush analysis. When Dr. Sarah Kim from the toxicology lab called, her voice was grim. Mr. Morrison, these aren't vitamins. This is brodifacoum. It's a second-generation anticoagulant rodenticide, commonly known as rat poison. Whoever gave you these was trying to cause internal bleeding and organ failure. How long have you been taking these? About 8 months, I said quietly. There was a sharp intake of breath. Mr. Morrison, you need to go to the emergency room. Now, this stuff accumulates in your system. You could have serious internal damage. I will. But first I need to ask, can you testify to these findings? In court if necessary? Absolutely. And Mr. Morrison, I'm legally obligated to report this to the authorities. This is attempted murder. I understand. But can you give me 24 hours before you file that report? There's someone else who needs to be protected first. She agreed, reluctantly. That afternoon, I took Sophie and all our evidence to the RCMP detachment in Kelowna. We met with Detective Constable James Walsh, a sharp-eyed man in his 40s, who listened to our story without interrupting. When we finished, he sat back in his chair and looked at Sophie. That was very brave of you, sweetheart. You did exactly the right thing. Then he turned to me. We'll need to move fast. If they've planned to finish this when they return, we need to be ready. I'll get warrants for the phone records, for Richard Chen's records, for your daughter and son-in-law's financial records. And we'll need to get you to a hospital, sir. You need treatment. Not until Melissa and Trevor are back, I said firmly. If they hear I'm in the hospital, they'll run. I know my daughter. Detective Walsh argued, but I was adamant. Sophie would stay with Bill and his wife Margaret. I would continue my normal routine, but stop taking the poisoned vitamins and start taking the real ones again. We'd set up surveillance on the house. When Melissa and Trevor returned and tried to administer the final dose, the police would be there. It was the longest 2 weeks of my life. I slowly started to feel better as the poison worked its way out of my system. Dr. Patterson, now brought into the loop, monitored me carefully. Sophie called every night from Bill's house, and each time I heard her voice, still getting used to her speaking again, my heart broke a little more. Finally, the day came. Melissa and Trevor's flight was due to land at 4 p.m. They'd texted me that they'd pick up Sophie around 6 p.m. and bring her home. At 5:30 p.m., my daughter's car pulled into the driveway. I was in my living room, pretending to watch TV, looking appropriately frail and weak. Detective Walsh and 2 other officers were in my garage, monitoring everything through hidden cameras. Melissa came in first. My daughter. She looked tanned, relaxed, happy. She gave me a hug that made my skin crawl. "Dad, you look tired. Are you feeling okay?" "Not great," I admitted, playing my part. "Been pretty weak the last few days, maybe coming down with something." I saw the glance she exchanged with Trevor as he walked in behind her. A quick, knowing look. "Well, we'll make you some nice dinner," Melissa said brightly. "You just rest. Where's Sophie?" "Bill and Margaret took her to the movies. Give us a chance to catch up. They'll bring her back around 8. More glances. They were thrilled. An extra 2 hours alone with me. "I'll make you some coffee, Dad," Melissa said. "Your favorite. The strong stuff." "That would be nice, sweetheart." I watched her go into the kitchen. Watched Trevor follow her. Through the cameras, Detective Walsh would be recording everything. I'd left the vitamin bottle on the counter, exactly where it always was. 10 minutes later, Melissa brought me a mug of coffee. "Here you go, Dad. This'll perk you up." I took it, raised it to my lips, then paused. "Actually, honey, would you mind getting me some water instead? My stomach's been a bit off. Coffee might be too much." I saw the flash of frustration in her eyes, but she took the mug back. "Of course, Dad." In the kitchen, I heard Trevor's low voice. "Just put it in the water then. Double dose. Let's get this done." My hands clenched into fists. My own daughter. My own child. Melissa returned with the water. I took it, held it, but didn't drink. "Aren't you going to drink it, Dad?" she asked, too casually. "In a minute. Sit with me first. Tell me about Hawaii." For the next 20 minutes, I listened to my daughter describe her vacation while holding a glass of poisoned water. Trevor sat across from me, his leg bouncing with impatience. Finally, he stood up. "Mr. Morrison, you really should drink that water. You're looking pale. We wouldn't want you to get dehydrated." "You're right," I said slowly. I raised the glass to my lips. "Dad, wait," Melissa started. And for a moment, I saw something in her eyes. Doubt, regret, fear, but it was too late. The front door burst open. Detective Walsh and his team flooded in. RCMP. Nobody move. The glass fell from my hand, water splashing across the carpet. Trevor lunged for the door, but 2 officers were already there. Melissa just stood frozen, her face white as a sheet. "Melissa Morrison and Trevor Hartley," Detective Walsh said formally. "You're under arrest for attempted murder. You have the right to remain silent." I watched my daughter's face crumple as the handcuffs went on. Watched her realize that I knew, that I'd known, that her plan had failed. "Dad," she whispered as they led her toward the door. "Dad, please. I can explain. It wasn't supposed to. You tried to kill me, Melissa. For 8 months. You poisoned me. You let me suffer." My voice was steady, cold. "You're not my daughter anymore." She started to cry then, great heaving sobs. But Trevor's face twisted with rage. "You old bastard," he spat. "You're worth more dead than alive, and you know it. That spoiled brat of yours deserves." "Shut your mouth," I said quietly. "Don't you dare talk about Sophie. She's worth 100 of you." As they were taken away, Bill arrived with Sophie and Margaret. Sophie ran to me, throwing her arms around my waist. "Is it over, Grandpa? Is it really over?" "It's over, sweetheart. You're safe now. We're both safe." The trial took 6 months. Richard Chen turned witness against them in exchange for a reduced sentence. The evidence was overwhelming. The poisoned vitamins, the burner phone, the financial records showing they'd already made deposits on a villa in Costa Rica, the emails planning my death. Melissa was sentenced to 12 years in prison for attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Trevor got 15, with the judge noting his manipulative and predatory behavior toward a vulnerable victim. The day of the sentencing, I sat in the courtroom and felt nothing when I looked at my daughter. No anger, no sadness. Just emptiness where my child used to be. Sophie sat beside me, holding my hand. She'd been in therapy, learning to process everything she'd been through. The selective mutism was gone, replaced by a bright, talkative child who was slowly healing. "Grandpa George," she whispered as we left the courthouse. "Are you okay?" "I am now, Sophie. I am now." We drove home to Kelowna, to the house Melissa had wanted so badly she'd been willing to kill for it. But it was Sophie's house now, Sophie's future, Sophie's inheritance. That evening, we sat in my workshop together, building a birdhouse like we used to. Sophie chattered away about school, about her friends, about the new treehouse she wanted to build in the spring. And I realized something. I'd lost a daughter, but I'd gained something more precious, the truth, my life, and a granddaughter who loved me enough to be brave when it mattered most. "You know what, Sophie?" I said as we hammered the last piece into place. "You're going to be just fine. We both are." She smiled up at me, paint smudged on her nose. "I know, Grandpa, because we have each other." And she was right. In the end, that was all that mattered. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. It's not an easy one to tell. Even now, 2 years later, I still wake up some nights remembering the moment I realized my own child wanted me dead. But I also wake up to Sophie's laughter echoing through the house, to the sound of her footsteps running down the stairs for breakfast, to a life that almost wasn't. The lesson I learned is this: evil doesn't always wear a stranger's face. Sometimes it wears the face of someone you love, someone you trust, someone you'd never suspect. And sometimes, salvation comes from the most unexpected places, from a 7-year-old girl who loved her grandfather enough to stay silent until silence was no longer an option. Watch the people around you. Listen to the children in your life. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. And never, ever take anything at face value. Because I did, and it almost cost me everything. My name is George Morrison. I'm 74 years old now. I live in Kelowna, British Columbia, with my granddaughter Sophie, who just turned 9. We're doing fine. Better than fine, actually. And every morning, when I take my real vitamins, prescribed by my real doctor, monitored by people I truly trust, I remember how close I came to never taking another pill again. Stay safe out there, and take care of each other. Sometimes, that's all we have.